In 2014, Microsoft generated billions in revenue and held a market valuation of $300 billion. Yet the tech industry viewed it as a dinosaur. While Microsoft spent the early 2000s protecting Windows, Apple and Google had bypassed them. The market had moved toward two new frontiers, cloud computing and the mobile phone. The company tried to force its way back into the hardware race by purchasing Nokia's mobile division. But the Windows Phone arrived late, lacked developer support, and struggled to find users. Microsoft had the capital and the engineering talent to compete. Their inability to innovate was the result of an internal culture that stifled new ideas. For over a decade under CEO Steve Ballmer, Microsoft operated through a rigid top-down management style. Success in this era was defined by a know-it-all attitude. To advance, employees proved they had every answer, dividing the company into competitive, isolated teams. Departments hoarded information and worked in active conflict over resources. Because failure was punished rather than studied, teams avoided taking the risks necessary to build a cohesive technology ecosystem. When Satya Nadella became CEO in 2014, he realized the company's crisis was psychological. He could not code his way out of the problem. Nadella identified empathy as the first step to reversing the company's decline. Before Microsoft could fix its products, it had to fix how its people interacted. Nadella immediately moved to replace the know-it-all attitude with a learn-it-all mindset. He based this on Carol Dweck's growth mindset philosophy, which argues that intelligence is something developed through curiosity and effort. Nadella treated empathy as an operational tool. He required leaders to listen to their colleagues' friction points and investigate the specific, unaddressed challenges facing their customers. When employees felt understood, mistakes stopped being career-ending events and became useful data. This shift removed the fear of risk that had previously blocked development teams from experimenting. This psychological safety allowed the company to begin the large-scale technological pivots that were previously impossible due to internal friction. As employees began to collaborate, Nadella structurally removed the silos separating the departments. He integrated previously warring teams into cross-functional units. This internal cooperation allowed Microsoft to focus on Azure, its cloud computing platform. Because engineers across product lines were finally communicating, Microsoft integrated Azure with Office 365 and Teams, locking them into a unified network. This architecture allowed the platform to scale rapidly. Major corporations could now manage their remote workforce and infrastructure through a single Microsoft environment. The success of this interconnected cloud network depended on the fact that the company's employees were no longer disconnected. For decades, Microsoft alienated developers by forcing them into a closed model. To build for Windows, coders had to follow Microsoft's rigid, proprietary rules. Nadella pivoted by embracing open-source code and acquiring GitHub, the world's largest hub for developer collaboration. Open-source development requires engineers to solve problems for a global community rather than just their own company. By contributing to these shared codebases, engineers adopted the outside developer perspective, turning engineering into a collaborative exercise. This led to the decision to put Microsoft Office on rival systems like Apple's iOS and Google's Android, platforms the company had previously fought to exclude. Microsoft stopped trying to force users into its own ecosystem and instead built products for the devices those users actually owned. While culture is often called an intangible asset, Microsoft's metrics show its impact on financial outcomes. Between 2014 and 2022, internal employee satisfaction rose from 62 to 85%. In that window, cloud market share grew to 22%, reaching $75 billion in revenue. These gains drove valuation. By 2022, Microsoft's market capitalization reached $2.3 trillion, a seven-fold increase. This turnaround demonstrates that an organization's internal structure eventually dictates the architecture of its products. Nadella saved a fading $300 billion empire by realizing that to improve the software, he first had to improve how the people